You ever heard of Tartaria?
Tartaria.
You've never heard of Tartaria? Oh, it's like my
love
favorite
this.
thing.
Like a bunch of structures all over the world, and the United States included, where we can't even build it today.
Tartari.
Look up Tartarian Empire.
Tartaria. There it is. Asia, Tartaria.
Well, before we get into that, have you ever looked into like...
Oh, wait a minute. They seem to say it's real. That was a real place.
What if we're already living in a post-apocalyptic landscape, and that Armageddon has already happened, and the finest architecture that we see today is just the remains from before that apocalypse? And what if these old world buildings once served practical functions, once providing the earth with an abundance of free energy? But then what if the founders of this old world then suppressed that knowledge from us, and suppressed it again when it was rediscovered, rewriting the history books to create a narrative that benefits them, rebranding and destroying the most obvious evidence of this advanced civilization via controlled demolitions and orchestrated wars, thus creating the naive and obedient population of today, who are unaware of where they came from or the timeline they're even in, foolishly believing that we are the pinnacle of humanity, not realizing how far we've fallen.
The reset.
What really happened? This wasn't just a flood, it was a reset, a geospiritual purge, not from nature, from them. The elite bloodlines didn't just erase history, they buried it, literally. The mud wasn't water and dirt, it was liquidated memory, a slurry of alchemical reaction, sound frequency, and geo-engineered destruction. This was weaponized Earth. They triggered it using ancient tech, resonance devices, tower harmonics, something like harp but older. It didn't just cover buildings, it silenced truth. Tartaria wasn't a lost empire, it was the empire. Worldwide, unified, based on free energy, ether tech, vibration, sound, water, and sacred geometry. The architecture still whispers it. Star forts, orphan trains, cathedrals tuned like instruments. They were building with resonance, not brick, and that scared the parasite class. So what did they do? They turned the ether grid against itself, hijacked the somatic fields, triggered a resonance collapse. Stone became liquid, mountains bled. The ground rose and swallowed whole cities. That's what the mud was.
You really believe this was built with hammer and chisel?
Part 2 of There Ain't Nobody Convincing Me that our civilization is more advanced than the people that constructed this architectural beauty. Just think about it, guys. How many times do we learn about the Old Western and nothing about the Tartarian Empire? And then when we get the indoctrinated gurus in the chat telling me that they just build it cheaper and faster these days, just look at the world fairs. They built the world fairs within 2 years. Then take a look at this building site that I've personally been working on myself. They have been building this for the last 10 years. 2 years, 10 years. I think there's somewhat an energy suppression control in this world as to why they're destroying these buildings and building these buildings. You know, in the 1500s, they were literally constructing stuff like this, apparently with hammer and chisel, whilst riding horse and carriages. We literally couldn't even draw the stuff they were carving back in the day. But this was just for entertainment, guys, and I'm as fictional as a dinosaur, baby.
Now, do you really believe that these elaborate places were just built with hammer and chisel? And look at the other buildings around these elaborate buildings. Why is it that they're so plain? Now, to me, there had to have been a more technical, advanced society that just left all these cathedrals and buildings behind. Because think about it, look at the level of detail with all these different videos and these old cathedrals and buildings, and all of a sudden we just leave that and start designing everything differently. These buildings have had to been here way before we were. Now, of course, this video is for entertainment purposes only, but you can tell the level of difference between then and now.
So I noticed something and I thought it was very unique, and I thought I'd bring it to y'all attention. This is in Russia. No, I'm not taking this building right now. I'm not focused on that. I'm actually focused on that. Right there. You see that? You see that ground? Look at that. Because in 2023, they ripped the asphalt up and it revealed this strategic, innovative, intricate metal design that was just all through the city. Take a look at that. What? You can just tell. I mean, you can see the cathedral back there. You know that's been there for hundreds of years. And then you got these in the ground, and it's just like, these were there for before hundreds of years, but who forged these? Look at how many they are. Look at that. It goes all the way up the street. Now, when I looked at this, you know what I said to myself? I said, there's no reason to put these here unless you are using these as a road for levitation. You got to understand, they put asphalt over this and used it as a road. It was all, you can see, it was already a road before this. But as you can tell, this ain't the kind of road that you roll over with wheels. And we know cars and wheels weren't made yet. But somebody designed this structure, and I'm convinced these were made for levitation. And they had vehicles that levitated down these roads over these metal discs. I mean, let's just consciously think about it for a second. You're an engineer, you're a metaphysical person. Come on, let's think here. Why, who, how would you even look at them all? Perfectly fitted. Look at how they just, look at that. All through the city. These have to be used for levitation. Because ain't no way. Ain't no way, and there's no reason to have a bunch of metal discs inside the ground that you're not rolling over with any wheels. And also, you're not using this with horses and buggies either. Why? As y'all now know, these would be smothered with horse shit. But as you can see, it was there before, and then they dug it up. And if you look at what's going on here, this isn't like somebody just did this on one block. I'm sure this grows through the entire city. Just like rail cars went through the entire city, these metal discs go through the entire city. And they raise so many questions. This has my mind just going. Trying to understand. Look at that. Look at the size of that. Look at the thickness of that. Right? Think about just going into the ground some 200, 300, 400 plus years ago. How do you forge it? I can't even do the Tartarian structures in Russia because Russia is the Tartarian stronghold. All the buildings in Russia are Tartarian. So to do Russia would just be a complete waste of time. Russia is Tartaria. I don't even know why they call it Russia. But these metal rods are definitely intriguing. So I really feel like these were synced together so that they can send a charge through them, right? Because you send a positive charge through this and you have a negative charge on the vehicle, they're going to repel each other. And if you want to shut that off, you just shut the charge off, and then the vehicle would either come down or, the vehicle will come down. It wouldn't levitate anymore. And then if you turn the charge back on, the vehicle will come back up. And at that point, you would probably need ether or something like that to propel the vehicle forward. But everything in my senses tells me these roads were used for levitation. They send a charge through them, and vehicles were hovering over these roads. You know what else I just thought was interesting? Just because I be on my anime shit. You see like the shape of these? I just thought that was odd. Now, it may not have nothing to do with it, but they always put weird shit out there in front of us for no reason. So who knows, right? Because when the mind's blind, the eyes can't see.
You can see the people are walking around on something that's absolutely remarkable. I mean, look at that. This is Buffalo, New York, 1901. You know, just stunning architecture. And this all has a frequency. You know, we've talked a lot about this with frequency, resonance, fractals, all of these materials, you know, all the copper that was used. Every statue on top of these buildings had copper. Every angel on top of these buildings had copper. You know, and then you start to wonder, well, copper's only 1% of the soil. Where were they getting it all from? So Buffalo, New York, look at that fountain right there, you know, right in the middle. Just, you know, keeping the water intact. And then this is New York, Buffalo, New York, 1901. You know, this was the sustainable buildings that people were, you know, temporarily building. That's what they were telling us. You got right there. There's more water. And see how the society who was building these, because I don't believe that, you know, they were horse and wagon time at that time, but the society who was building this, look at how much they cherished water. I mean, there's so much water and fountains and all of this. And then you go to the next one, which you have a Coliseum in Buffalo, New York. You know, a picture I don't think many people have seen, which is interesting. You know, you have this, and that can be energy.
Is this the World's Fair?
This is the World's Fair, yes.
Yes.
This is the picture, and then let me just...
World's Fair 2025. World's Exposition 2025. World's Fair / Expo in Dubai in 2020. I didn't know about that. And 2015 in Italy, the World's Expo. So here I am conspiracizing on the World's Fair, looking at all the different machines that they pretend to be buildings, and I learned that we're still hosting the World Fairs. Check out this list of World's Fairs on Wikipedia. The first one is in 1791 in Prague, and there's a whole bunch in the 1800s. They were just faring away. Carnival City. I mean, look at this. All like in the same year, year after year. Every single one of these locations is probably a Tartarian city or Tartarian building. Anyway, as I'm scrolling all the way down, I passed it a little bit. We are still hosting the World's Fairs. Like, there's a few more coming up to 2035. Did anybody know? It's still a thing?
There's all these orphans and all these people who are kind of put into this World Fair. And here's the most interesting thing. Baby incubators. So when we get into the whole Cabbage Patch Kids and all the babies and everything that was already here, this is the baby incubators. And here's another video, or another picture of the baby incubators. And what's interesting is they're sitting in fireproof buildings. That's what this talks about. But all these world fairs always burn down. You know, there's all these fires that take out these world fairs. So with the fireproof buildings, doesn't make a lot of sense, that's for sure. And then here's how babies were being grown. The whole Cabbage Patch situation. Because they were all somehow premature babies, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The whole orphan trains. But the 1904 World Fair had it all on display. And it even says on the bottom of this that there were trained nurses, and the demonstrators explained to the visitors how the incubators helped the babies and were in fact there to take care of the children. So when you get into St. Louis and that whole thing, baby incubators. Chicago World Fair, baby incubators. Philadelphia, New York City, London, Vienna, all the different places. That's how they were populating things.
I think it's really the construction and the establishment of this Ferris wheel that tells us that there's a lot more going on, regardless of what we think of the story behind the World's Fair. Told that all the buildings were built with temporary construction techniques and stucco and painted with white plaster. And yet, at the same time, they also built this extraordinary Ferris wheel of a size that's not been equaled since. And you look at the foundation of the Ferris wheel and the basic machinery. How was this manufactured, and how were these pieces transported? You even look at the centerpiece of the Ferris wheel, the size behind it. Yet we'll never see any photos that show us how exactly this was manufactured or even transported. It looks like they moved it around on rails. But what was really the situation behind it? How did they put it in place? Was it really that easy for them? And if it was, then why don't we build a giant Ferris wheel now?
Right now, I'm on the Chicago's World Fair. Look at this book. Look at the size of this book. I'm about to show y'all some shit. Look at the size of this book, right? This is Chicago World Fair. This is the St. Louis World Fair. I'm going to get to that afterwards, okay? But look at the difference in size of these books. I don't know what the fuck went on at the St. Louis Fair. Anyways, in Chicago World Fair, check this shit out. You got to peep. The state buildings were located to the west and north of the Palace of Fine Arts. Every single one of these buildings at the World Fair. This is supposed to be a fair. Look at the size of this building, right? This is supposed to be a temporary building. Look at the top. Tartarian structures. You see the archways. You see the dome. Look at what they want to tell you. The San Francisco. Who's the architect? White NPC. A Page Brown. Reflected the... What style is this? The mission style architecture. Really. Mission style. Look down here. Another one. Colorado. So this is supposed to represent California. This is supposed to represent Colorado. And of course, they come up with somebody else that supposedly, you know, Wendell, he designed this Colorado building. Really? He designed it with what in 1890 something? And built that with what? And measured that with what lasers? And if you notice, these are bell towers. Look inside, the bells are gone. Over here, they got the Florida building. Look at that. The Florida building exhibits examples of agriculture, produce, and gardens of native flora. Look down here. They wanted to represent Idaho, the 3-story Idaho building designed by architectural firm of Cutter and Poets of Spokane. Really? Really? At Chicago. More lies. The Illinois building, located south of the North Palm, was the largest and costliest. Oh, it cost you guys money. How much money did it cost you to make this big, huge building out of stone, which is perfectly symmetrical with the phi ratio, with a dome and an antenna and a mooring mast on top, with a lake that is sealed in by fucking stone? It was designed by W.W. Boyington and modeled somewhat after the Illinois state capitol. And are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Let's just keep noticing how they keep trying to change architectures, but the buildings have the same function. Oh, look at this. Another building with domes and antennas and spires all over the place. And then, oh, what are they going to tell? Oh, here it is. Henrietta, white NPC. Then we got down here a strong Gothic revival element of, really? It's Tartarian. Shut the fuck up, that Gothic bullshit. Here we go, another one. You see the archways. You see the antennas. You see the geometric balance. 1, 2, 3. You see the perfect ratio. What are they going to say down here? Oh, designed by Cedar Rapids, firm of Jocelyn and Porter, and located in the architects chose to use a French, oh, this is a French chateau style. Really? Really? Y'all need to stop fucking lying, man. Look at this, them trying to write themselves into history again. Oh, architect Seymour Davis designed the, oh, what do we got there? The cruciform mission style. Oh, really? It just looks Tartarian to me. What is this? We've seen one of these buildings, 560. These buildings are, actually, you got a library to look like that. Some of y'all got a city hall that look like that. Oh, but let's just see how talented these people, let's see who's talented. The Louisville firm of Maury and Dodd. Oh, they designed this is the classical revival style Kentucky building. Oh, is that what this is? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Look at the size of that building. Made out of solid stone. Okay. Now that's supposed to be Louisiana. Okay. This is supposed to be Maine, a building representing Maine. This is supposed to be a building representing Massachusetts, right? Let's see if they're going to run out of creativeness. What do they call this style? Blah, 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 this, that, and the third, yada, yada, yada. Designed by some bullshitter. Nothing. What do we got over here? Constructed, native, who at the time, fair work, structures from the world, today in Poland Springs, was moved and dismantled in Chicago. Sure, it was dismantled. What do we got over here? Designed by the Boston firm. What kind of style did y'all use here? Any kind of style y'all want to talk about? Historical artifacts and other relics. Historical museum. What do we got down here? Oh, Gothic-inspired Michigan built. Gothic. What makes this Gothic-inspired? Gothic-inspired how? After a while, you just start to see the lies and the bullshit. You see here? Like, look at this building, right? 100% Tartarian, but let's go Italian Renaissance style. This is supposed to be the Minnesota building. How does this have anything to do with Minnesota? Look down here. Look at the dome. Look at that. Y'all already know. Look, you're telling me this Tartarian beautiful device is supposed to represent Missouri? And this is what? Spanish? Renaissance style? Really? So we got Italian Renaissance style up here, and this is Spanish Renaissance style over here. Like, you hear these people? Look at this one over here. This is Montana, right? Look what they're gonna design. Look, the classical Roman style. What? Can you white NPCs just stop lying and making up? All these buildings is Tartarian, man. Y'all lying about every damn thing. Look at this building right here. All right, let's pause this for a second. Look at this building. This building right here. Look at it. Same exact goddamn building design. Same building design, right? They're going to tell you firm, Maury and Dodd. Same building design. This building's supposed to be representing Nebraska. Look at it. Same building design, right? Who made this? It was designed by Henry Voss. Maury and Dodd, Henry Voss. Look at that building. Look at that building. That's how they know they fucking lying. These are all Tartarian buildings. These are all Moorish structures. Y'all ain't built none of these motherfuckers. Does this building look familiar to you? Yes, it does, my American friends, because you've seen this building 563 million times throughout your life. Everywhere. But if you let the design by Cincinnati architect James W. Laughlin tell you, it was done in a classic revival style. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit, man. Like, At some point, you gotta be sick and tired of these fucking lies. Look at the intricacy of this. First of all, you see this right here? This is for a bell. A bell is supposed to be inside of here. Look as it comes down. You got stone statues right here. And if you keep looking, you have to understand, this is 1890 something, right? Look at these. When did you think these got here? Do you think there's wires running to the ground to make that light up? There's not. If you put the whole thing together, you understand this makes no sense. They didn't build none of this shit. Look at this right here. Look at the building. Look at how intricate the building is. Look at the perfect balance of the building. This is New York. This building is supposed to represent New York. Designed by McKim, Mead, and White of New York, who are also responsible for the architectural building in New York. Just stop it, man. Just stop it. Look at that. Look at the size of this archway. What the hell do you think needs to be that big that they need an archway that big? It's just so much bullshit once you really break it down. Like, for instance, look here. They said that this is what? Classic revival style, right? Look at it. It goes in here. This just has columns. It comes out and it goes around, right? Look right here. Comes out. Look, goes around. Instead, they just don't have columns. They got archways, right? What did they call this? Classic Greek style. So somehow this Tartarian building gets labeled as classic Greek style. Same exact building, same structure over here, except instead of columns, they have archways. And now this is, all of a sudden, this is a completely different design and a completely different name. One's classic revival and one's classic Greek. It's complete bullshit.
This is the Westinghouse exhibit of electricity, and it's fascinating because when you think about all the electricity people, a lot of those people, they just threw a name on something and then took it over. This is the size of the exhibit. It was absolutely massive. And then we're right back to those beautiful, absolutely stunning buildings and everybody out with an umbrella and black, which is interesting because wearing a lot of black works against health over time. Westinghouse electricity, more, this is all electricity. That's what these next pages are going to be, which is interesting. You see all these big gigantic dynamos. Nobody ever talks about dynamos. But these dynamos that were producing all this energy, and they just somehow seem to have vanished. They just went out of style. Now, they'll probably say we have more efficient things nowadays, but I don't really believe that. Then we go, here's an interesting one. These are refracting lenses. These were used for lighthouses, and these had mercury inside of them. And the mercury, the sunbeams would hit them, reflect off the mercury off the inside, and then that would allow the color spectrum to move. Now, this could be also used as a weapon. I don't know, but I kind of sometimes think, they showed these very interesting videos where they would cook rocks with a lens like this too. So when we see some of those old world buildings that are burnt into the earth, we can maybe sometimes think they did something like that, maybe with like a blimp or a zeppelin. A lot of stuff that obviously it's just something to think about.
I tried to tell you that those old fireplaces wasn't used for burning coal and wood, and you didn't believe me. But when I say I got your ass, oh, I've got your ass. So, this is how the fireplace used to work. There would be a metal plate at the back of the firebox which would reflect infrared rays when the fireplace was heated up. There would also be 2 ether capacitors in the fireplace which provokes eddy currents in the metal frame which transmits them to the metal plate at the back. Eddy currents are current loops formed over conductor surfaces due to changing magnetic flux. They are useful in induction heating, levitating, electromagnetic damping, and electromagnetic braking. So the fireplace and the roof are both connected by metal bondings through the chimney. The whole construction becomes one solid conductor, and then the energy that's gathered from the ether gets converted into heat. In other situations, they even used radium for heating. I guess that's the reason why we're still calling radiators even till this day. I mean, come on, brother. Do you really think they was burning wood and coal in these fireplaces? That's what the savages did when they came along and found these empty buildings, because they didn't know how to use the technology. And the size of the fireplace definitely wasn't built by us. So yeah, I've said this many times before. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind.
There's an energy all around us. The free energy. Energy of the atmosphere. And it's been called many other things. Chi. The nature's energy. A lot of things. But many people refer to it as the aether. And in the 1800s, many books were written on this mysterious fluid, as they called it. Now, some people say they were referring to electricity, but many others will point to places like these stupas, as they called them. And you look at these ornate rods that come off the top, and to be told that these were purely ornamental, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In modern times, we would say that might be a lightning rod or something to that effect, because that's pretty much the only thing comparable. But in a way, they are much like lightning rods, because lightning rods in the 1800s were used for the same purpose as these stupas, to collect the atmospheric energy. There's just so much to this whole thing. How do they work? Why do they work? Are we going to see churches are of the same effect as stupas? And there's many buildings around the world purely built to harness this energy from the atmosphere. And it's all been covered up.
The radium fireplaces. These fireplaces weren't being lit up with fire and wood, because that would bring all this smoke into your house. And they showed Thomas Edison sitting in front of a radium fireplace, sitting there with his feet in front of radium. So if radium was as toxic as we were told too, why would someone have it in their house and in their fireplace of all places? The periodic table of radium is 88. And if you think of 88, that's infinite. You know, it's 2 8s going back and forth. That's an infinite number. Even Henry T. Murray was talking about radium. And he was saying about how it's a radioactive decaying substance. And he said all of nature is a radioactive decaying substance. Then I started looking at the radium springs and all the springs that people sit in. You go all over the country, there's radium hot springs that people sit in. And the Rockefellers and Rothschilds used to sit in these. And I'm like, okay, if it's toxic, you wouldn't sit in a spring with it. And then when people go to buy a house, they ask them if they have radon gas. And I'm like, that's interesting. Why are you asking about this? I started going down all these rabbit holes, and then it led me to Galen Windsor and him eating plutonium and him showing how he's taking plutonium, putting it in a jar and eating it. And he said, the reason we've been told that lie is because that is the key to the free energy, or the unlimited energy. And if people understood that all this stuff was harmless, then they wouldn't be able to scare people into, fallouts and all these things that are happening.
Guess what? I'm here with Miles Johnston, and we're going to talk about Tartaria because he's an expert. He has a channel about it.
Yeah. The Tartarian architecture and structured buildings, a lot of it's still standing. And this means it's relatively recent. This idea that was maybe mud floods thousands of years ago, or hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it doesn't work. These buildings are intact. Some of them have actually been covered up with mudslides, like in Oslo, but the technology is still there. Not all of it was destroyed. Something has happened in the early 1800s. Something has arrived, something or other. They've shut down all the existing electrical architecture that happened then, rewritten it and rebranded it under fake, engineered, false mathematical equations, like Maxwell's equations. They're the fundamental equations that we use today in electrical theory. And it's been fixed, it's been fraudulently altered when they converted it from quaternions to the algebra that we use today in mathematics. And it's missing crucial information. And that is so we must keep burning oil or coal to make electricity. That has always been a fraud. And Tartaria is continuing to knock on the door. I am convinced that Tesla didn't invent a lot of his technology. He managed to hide it. It's actually Tartarian science, the original true science of electrical power. And he's managed to hide that in plain sight. So if we look at the Tesla patents and what he's actually got hidden in there with a wider perspective, we will find the secrets of Tartaria.
Where can we find the Tesla patents?
The Tesla patents, there's patents books. For instance, we have people in England working on a Tesla cold steam engine. But that was hidden. The Tesla patent was split in two and hidden in the US and British and the UK patent books. They separated those two patents by about 1,000 numbers. So it's taken a very great deal of clever thinking to join that single patent back into one. Because the numbers on the patent are 1, 2, 3. Objects number 1, 2, 3. And then on the next patent, which is 1,000 patent numbers away, you have the other half of the machine saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's a scientist, there's an engineer in England who's joined the two together, and he's using now modern science and technology to do 3D printing and frictionless bearings to make room temperature air into a fuel to power turbines.
And this is Tartarian.
It's called the Tesla cold steam turbine.
And this is, you believe, Tartarian
that
technology.
Kind of technology goes back before.
What about Mu? How does Mu relate to Tartaria?
Mu and all that is 26,000 years ago.
Okay, so Mu was first.
We're now at that time when the Earth's crust is going to shift, and we're going to go back to what happened 12,500 years ago.
Right, so that was Mu first, and they had that technology. They probably passed it.
All of that, yeah.
And they passed it to Tartaria.
Yeah, but the Tartarian buildings that we see today cannot be 26,000 years old.
Right. No.
So they had access to that technology as recently as the 1800s.
Right. And how are we going to get this word out?
We have to see through the lies of J.P. Morgan and the scientists who rewrote the Maxwell equations at the end of the 1800s, thereby corrupting electrical power science today.
And that's how we'll find out how they did it and may be able to use that technology ourselves.
We need to go back to Maxwell's equations as they were originally written in quaternions, not algebra. And then you will find the terms which give you the other parts of the equation which are missing. There's another gentleman called the Hunt for Zero Point, Tom Bearden. The late Tom Bearden makes a complex energy from a vacuum. And he was a scientist. He only passed away about 10 years ago. And he explains this in his books, Energy from the Vacuum.
Energy what?
Energy from the vacuum.
From the vacuum.
You can say energy from the ether.
Okay. And all right, so how do people contact you or reach you or get more information?
Well, I'm the Basis Project, and my new website is out of the platform by YouTube, so on basistv.com. We found out that the Germans were making transgenic beings in World War II, and they brought that technology to England, and in England they started making aliens.
Oh, and that's why you called it Basis?
Plural of underground base.
So, basistv.com. Your name again?
Miles Johnson, and it's a new website. We've only just got all our 25 years, 30 years of work reloaded, and you can't trust anything on YouTube. So
right. Okay. Well, so thank you so much.
Happy days.
Okay.
Is this Atlanta or Atlantis? We know the truth now. This is fire. We know the truth now.
So we're in the field again, we're exploring. Look at all the symbols as well. Impressive, no? Like, look at that. And then, you know, the whole thing just solid. Such intricate detail. There you go. You guys got the inn. And this prayer. Ye are the fruits of one truth, and the leaves of one branch. Religion is a radiant light and an impregnable stronghold. Unity, the power so powerful is unity's light that it can illuminate the whole earth. Friendliness, my light is in thee. Heavenly home is reunion with me. Good character surpasseth the light of the sun. O Son of Being, walk in my statues for love of me. This is God's portrait. This is God's bust. This is God's self-image, unlike the humanly statues. This is God's statue. That's what they would have thought. It's a sacred geometry everywhere. It's kind of like the earth, more so than a human body. The human body's expression of the earth. This is like the earth itself.
Look at the size of this massive building. Massive. But more importantly, check this out. What is that? Those are lictors. And this building right here has got, I think it's got about 16. Lictors in total. And I don't know I have no idea what's up with this gating fencing that it's got going on here. All the buildings seem to have more building underneath with more windows. All these buildings got waterways underneath them. But I did find it very, very interesting that this building actually had lictors literally like all over it. And check this building out. Sometimes the signs are right in front of you. That's what needs to happen. Anyways. Look at all that. Look at all that beautiful red brick. Just look at that. Come on now. Come on. Just what? Look at that. That's absolutely insane. That is just beautiful. When I say a building that's beautiful, that you want to look at, that's gentle on the eyes, this is what I mean. Look at the curvature of the corners. Look at all the copper. This is copper on the building. Look at that. Who even does that? This is going all the way up, all the way up, all the way up, and oh, look at that. Look at that. What do we got in there? A bell that they don't use. And then look right there, the wire. Where is the wire coming from? The fucking ether radiated can't look, they're grounding this shit like they always do. And then look, you got the cameras up here. Why? I don't know. Boom. Another ether harnester right there. Look, all this is copper. Look at all this. Look, another one right there. They don't build with this stuff. This is not their building. They don't even know what that is. Let's go see it from another angle. Damn near looks like a capsule going up. Then you got the clock. When you see this stuff, you just know they did not build this, okay? They did not. Look, just look at that. Look at the perfection of it. You can just see there were no mistakes made on this building. Look at that. And what's organized? Man, listen, it's either you built it or you didn't. Organized in 1867, which means some Masons came along and some Jesuits drew up a plan for this building and basically erased the original owners from history. That's what organized means.
Guess what? It's finally happening. Jimmy Corsetti, who is a mainstream historian with more than 139,000 followers on Twitter, is talking about Tartaria. He's been exposing the maps and discussing how there's ample evidence of the existence of the kingdom of Tartaria because of all of the maps that exist, and debating this with several people on his Twitter channel. He also points out how the Wall of China has turrets that point inside to China rather than out of China. So it seems that the wall was made to keep people in China, not out of China. And he's made a video about this, and I'll show some scenes.
I recently learned of a conspiracy involving the Great Wall of China that is so bizarre, I had to make a video on it. Let me first mention a few interesting facts about this site to remind everybody. It is approximately 13,171 miles long, which is approximately 21,196 kilometers. Unbelievable. It is literally the longest man-made structure in the world, and it was built over centuries. Construction was said to begin in the 7th century BC, so 2,700 years ago, and finished into the 16th century AD. And it had multiple purposes. The wall was built not only for military defense, but also for controlling trade, immigration, as well as communication. And it's made of varied materials. And it's even said that the labor force, the estimates, suggest that hundreds of thousands to possibly millions of workers were involved in the construction of this wall. But not only that, some sections still remain hidden or buried, with estimates suggesting that up to 30% of the wall remains undiscovered. But here is something that a lot of people find surprising as well, is that a vast majority of the pictures that you'll find on the internet involving the Great Wall of China are all at the notable tourist locations, all of which have been restored. It's not until you go off the beaten path that you realize that a vast majority of the Great Wall of China is in ruins, shattered, and slowly decaying. And I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Michael Collins of the Wandering Wolf YouTube channel, who visited China personally, that's him, just a few years ago and explored the areas off the beaten path. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with Michael Collins involving his trip to China from a few years ago that I became aware of this conspiracy. And it involves two things. One of which is the fact that he literally was able to scale over this wall from the outside going in. I'll say that again, and keep in mind we don't have images of it because he wasn't aware of what was happening while he was there. It wasn't until after the fact that it came to his awareness of just how astonishing this fact is, which is that you can climb over various parts of the Great Wall of China from the outside going in, which makes absolutely no sense on earth if this wall was constructed to keep people out, as of course we were all taught in school. But not only that, the various arrow slits that are found throughout the wall are also found facing the inside rather than the outside. And many areas of the wall have the arrow slits facing both ways, which they say was to help with the defenses. However, what Mike witnessed firsthand was that there was vast portions of the wall that where the arrow slits were only facing the inside, not the outside. Which, in other words, is indicative that the wall may have been constructed to keep their people inside, unable to leave, rather than keeping outsiders from coming in, which to me is one of the most disturbing things I've heard. If that is indeed the case, which again guys, think about this for a second. If you're able to easily climb over the wall from the outside in, whereas on the inside going out it's noticeably steep, maybe we should consider the possibility that this wall was constructed for much more sinister reasons than we had imagined.
So let's all support this mainstream historian and hope that he keeps on talking about this very important subject. And let's hope that this information gets to the new administration, to Trump and Elon Musk and everybody in the new administration, so they can investigate what happened in our past that's been hidden from us. And this will supply information that will help us to regain the free energy that we once.
This video is only hundreds of years old. We were so more advanced than what we think. History is a complete lie. They are covering up something. This is definitely some sort of anti-gravity technology used by the ancient Tartarians. History is his story. These videos are not just it. There are pictures of the ancients using advanced technology that we do not even use to this day. Why are we not told about this? And why is this not in our history books? This looks like some sort of spirit technology to see the other side, or some sort of hologram technology. What do you think?
So I just stopped at the Goodwill and I found this map. It's a pretty sweet map. It says it's a map of Europe. But what does this say? Or what does that say right there? Okay.
Recently came across this book. I was out in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. This book is from 1777. America was 1 year old at the time. The name of this book is right here. It's the Universal Geographical Grammar from 1777. I'll be going through this book, making a lot of videos. There's some crazy stuff in here. I'm just gonna give a quick preview of this because there's things in here like, so here's the opening map. Here's the opening map of the world. And right, let's see, right, hold on. Right here, Eastern Tartary. And right here is Western Tartary. And there's China. And what we'll get into farther back, it's going to be Chinese Tartary also. And then over here, the lower half of America is Florida. The left side, you can see California. Then the whole top is empty. And there is no Canada. So then, we'll go to the next one. This is the doctrine of the sphere. Here is the artificial sphere. Because the world was coming from being flat and going into being a globe. And right here, you've got the doctrine of the globe. And let's see, hold on. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, all right, let me go back to my page. So here we got of the terrestrial globe and maps. So now we got geographical problems performed by the globe. All right, so we've got problem 1. The diameter of an artificial globe being given to find its surface in square and its hold on a second. This is for 1700. So the F's, the lowercase f's, or the cursive F's are actually lowercase s's. So I've got to convert everything. It's solidity. Okay, solidity in its cubic measure.
which looks like Mefure. Right there, Mefure. Folidity, so it's solidity. Right. Anyway, there's a lot of things about this book that are very different. So we got problem 2, given any place on the globe. Problem 3, given the time of the year. Problem 4, given any place of the globe and the time of the year. Problem 5, given new places on the globe. See, this is the thing, is that they're having to recalibrate, reconfigure the way that they see distances and find places on a globe map, because before this, everything was flat earth maps. I'm not going to spend any more time on that part. Wait. Let me go to the next one. This is endless. I could be on this. All right, Spain. I could be on this book forever. All right, so this is the first cover page that I found. I think the original, the very front cover page in front of that first universal globe map is gone. It wasn't here when I got it. But from the other book that I saw online, this one's much better condition. Far better. All the maps are here. Here's the frozen ocean. All right, here's the Atlantic Ocean. There's Africa. But anyway, I'm just covering the fact that it's called the geographical grammar on this one. Let me go to the next marked page. Is that it? Let's see. Here we go. All right, the Empire of China. All right. Chinese Tartary. So, Tartary was real. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This book is filled with it. All right. And they just talk casually about it. You know, this is before they had done away with it. This is before they had changed all their information. They'll probably come knock on my door and get me after showing this, but whatever. You know, we all got to go sometime. Let's see what's next. Oh, so we got Africa. So over here, this is the only one that shows, I guess that's supposed to be a crocodile or a dragon. And then, I'm not going to say it. We was kings. All right, I said it. All right, so we got Ethiopia. I'm trying to find, oh, here it is. Here it is, y'all. Negro Land. I didn't write this book. But this is the whole thing, is that they've got different oceans back then. So much. They got a whole book thing in the back about discoveries, new discoveries in the 1700s. Trying to get to it. All right, here's America. Here's America. All right, so we got North America. And the whole top is parts unknown. Parts unknown. All right, so we got California, Florida. All of this is Florida. All of this is Louisiana Purchase. Louisiana Purchase. Yeah. New Albion is your upper west. And then parts unknown, all of Canada, all around Yellowstone, Montana, all that stuff is missing. All right, nobody's explored it. Well, you know, they were there. Nobody had founded all the stuff that was coming. Let me get to the back of this. Yeah, and we got new discoveries. A short account of the principal discoveries made in the voyages. What does that say? Oh, lately undertaken at the expense of the British government. All right, so it talks about Captain Cook going to the North Pole, how they're offering rewards to people to find a route through the North Pole so they can get to the Indies for trade faster and easier. You got new chronological table. for the area content, writings of learned men. I mean, there's a lot going on in this book. I'll get into each one of these sections over time a little bit more. But this is that.
What have we found here? Are we looking at a holdover of some old world technology? This is the Santa Justa lift in Lisbon, Portugal. A steampunk looking elevator which dates back to 1899. But could it be even older than that, with the date just a mere fabrication? Some interesting geometric patterns on the side there. I'd love to take a ride and show you the view from the inside, but this is being filmed on the day of the mysterious Portuguese and Spanish blackout, so it isn't operational. They knew I was coming. But here's the view you get from the top of the tower at least. It has a height of 45 meters covering 7 stories, and includes 2 elevator cabins, each capable of holding up to 29 people. They literally don't make them like this anymore, do they? Another was built around the same time, but of course has since been demolished. What a waste.
Those of you that follow me will know that I split my time between Italy and the UK. Now, from Sicily, it's an hour flight to Rome. I caught the flight and I went to check out the Vatican. Beautiful building, great architecture, lots of hidden secrets and sacred geometry. Now, people look like specks of rice compared to this building. That's how big it is. Now, look at this giant door here. This is what this video is about. What is the purpose of doors? The purpose of a door is to let you through and to keep people out. Now, look at the size of the archways and the doors, and look at the size of the people. Now, pay attention to where the handles should be on the doors. You've got one very low for normal sized humans like us, and there were previously ones for giants. The symbolism on the floor is seashells and stars, the 8-pointed star, and I'll make a video on that later. Now look at the bolt on the top of this door. Look at how small this guy is. Now, as he closes the door, you will see at the very top, there's a bolt. Like, you know, when we have bolts on our door, we slide the top one, we do the middle one, and then we maybe key it. Why would it be up there if you can't reach it? Now, it can only mean that these giant structures and giant doors were built for giant people. Now, I've touched on this with Tartaria, and you had different sizes of giants, just like you have different sizes of people today, ranging from 4 foot to 7 feet. Now, these other doors are around the Vatican and buildings around the Vatican. And look at where the handle is on the door. Now, this door here has been cut to make space for a normal sized human. But in reality, this door is double the size of a normal human. And you can see the holes there. Look at the holes in the middle where the handles used to be. They have been removed and they've been put lower for normal sized humans, which come up to about the breast or the belly button. This is called the Pantheon in Rome. Great tourist site. You'll see me on the next picture there with my hat, and I'm pointing up at where the handles used to be. Now, you know, these giant doors, megalithic structures all over Rome. It's littered with these, with giant columns, big stones, and big doors for big people. And look at this. The handles are above the guy's head. And this was funny because he opened the smaller door, which they cut. They cut to make this the size for smaller people. And he walks in. That made me laugh. And I caught this live in Rome. So you can have a look at the style of the building. This building is a Tartaria style building with a Phoenician fascia over it. Now I will make more videos on Tartaria and Phoenicia and explain to you what's going on here with the lion heads and the columns and the triangles above it. But this is a church not too far from the Vatican, a smaller one. As you can see just above it there's a sign, and the sign has been painted on with the name, but it's very primitive looking. You can tell we today are inheritors of this structure, and we have and look, you can see where the handles are. We've just kind of claimed it and repurposed this building and claimed it as a church. But look how big the handles are, and look at where they're positioned on the door.
What would the world be like if giants were still around? And this is something that I want you to understand. There was a time on Earth when giants and smaller sized humans used to live as one. And because of the false history that we've been taught and religion, we've always viewed giants as savages or barbarians, when in reality, they was just as, if not more sophisticated than smaller sized humans. And they came in all creeds and colors, not just Caucasian giants, but black giants too. Oh my diddy. Who remembers the Shield brothers from Texas? Every one of them was over 7 foot tall. I would love to be one of those brothers. And for the people who still don't believe that giants exist, this femur bone is still being displayed in a museum. And they say it belonged to a giant 14 to 16 feet tall. Oh my days. And for all the people wondering, why would they lie? Why would they remove this from history? Remember, knowledge is power, and he who holds the knowledge holds the power.
The Great Reset Tartaria's Guide.
Copper, the specific metal, would emit a red hue just naturally, like a fire, when it was in the dark, and then it would also emit a green hue. And what's the most common thing when you see people have copper? It starts turning green and patinaing. That's actually a color spectrum coming off of it. So if we take electroculture into another level, you could be adding different colors and different spectrums to the antenna so that you can get all these different colors just like the rainbow. So you're almost like you're creating an antenna with a prism that reflects certain colors and then also conducts electricity at the same time. So you can take it to so many different things, and the fun part is you can mess around with it and have fun with it. You know, I've seen so many different designs. I've seen little, piece of toothpicks wrapped with copper. I've seen coils. I've seen, like you said, the more complex ones where they're running north to south so that they can track the north and south energy, running copper all the way across. I've seen people attach it to the roof and run it all the way down. You can mess around and see what works with your land, because everybody's land is different. If you walk around with dowsing rods, you can determine kind of where you want to put things to, but there's frequencies everywhere. And a lot of people always ask, well, which way do I coil things? Because of the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and all these things. What I've started to learn to say is just go with how your plants are coiling in your backyard. Because everybody is different, everybody's got different spins. You know, you go to Sedona, you got both at the same time. But, you know, go with whatever your plants are doing and follow that coil or that movement, and that will help bring that movement onto your property and help increase that. Because what I realize is with all of this is it's just vortex and magnetism. It's the words we don't talk about anymore because now we have electricity. So you're just increasing, you know, the life force energy in your backyard and all in your house and everything. As Mark Zuckerberg built a bunker and he put copper pipes in his bunker. So think about that. Mark Zuckerberg likes the copper, that's for sure. So if he's putting copper pipes in his bunker, you should put copper pipes in your home. They're not doing these things for fun. They're not just like, copper looks kind of cool. I'll kind of take it. You know, it's got like a cool color to it. You know, I think it's kind of fancy. No, because it blocks radio frequencies. And it also helps keep the structure of their water. So if Mark Zuckerberg is putting copper pipes in his bunker, you should be putting copper pipes in your home. And if someone comes to pay you to take out your copper pipes, you know what you can tell them. There's the door. Tony Robbins has an amazing bunker. He also has a huge salt room, and he doesn't allow any technology into his house. His whole house is hardwired. Look at that. It's almost like these celebrities know what to do, almost like they know the threats that we face on the regular, and they have everything to counter it. Very, very interesting.
You were never meant to know this. You were never supposed to ask why cities from Russia to Chicago, from Delhi to Mexico City, all share the same impossible architecture. The same domes, the same towers, the same star-shaped fortresses, built with technology beyond their time, and then vanished. This isn't a theory, this is forbidden history. It begins with a name carved into old maps from every corner of the world, Tartaria. From the 13th century through the 19th, European cartographers and scholars documented a vast empire across northern and central Asia. You can find it in Gerardus Mercator's 1595 atlas, Hermann Moll's 1719 maps, Joseph Nicholas de la Isle and Ivan Kirilov's 1730 map of the Russian Empire. Even in Encyclopedia Britannica, 1771 edition, where Tartary is described as the largest empire on Earth. Tartaria, or Great Tartary, was larger than the Roman Empire. It stretched from Siberia to the Pacific, deep into what we now call Russia, Mongolia, China, even parts of the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. And then, by the early 1900s, it was gone. Not conquered, deleted. Ask yourself, how does the largest empire in recorded cartography just disappear? You won't find Tartary in history books today. They replaced it with the term nomads. They called its people barbarians. They said it never existed. But the architecture tells a different story. Look around. Kazan Cathedral in St. Petersburg, Taj Mahal in India, the Kremlin's golden domes, the San Francisco City Hall, rebuilt after 1915, Mexico's Palacio de Bellas Artes, started in 1904, delayed by war and revolution, the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, the Capitol Building in Washington, D.C., all echo the same electromagnetic design principles: domes, towers, spires, antenna. These weren't churches. They were energy conductors, built to draw from the aether, a free radiant field of energy that modern science buried. And that tech? Nikola Tesla tried to bring it back. Tesla, born in 1856 in what was once part of the Tartarian perimeter, he spoke of the aether, of resonant frequency, of free wireless energy. He built Vardenclyffe Tower, 1901, funded by J.P. Morgan, until Morgan realized there would be no meter to profit from. Then came the shutdown. Tower destroyed, tech erased, and Tesla labeled a madman. But Tesla didn't invent it, he remembered it. It gets deeper. Let's talk world fairs. They say they were built to showcase progress. But what if they were really the final display of the old world? Chicago, 1893, the Columbian Exposition. St. Louis, 1904. San Francisco, 1915. Buffalo, 1901. Each fair unveiled massive, intricate cities, white stone, vast domes, electric lighting, all built in less than 2 years with horse and cart, then torn down immediately after. That's not plausible. That's not even rational. That is repurposing. Those cities weren't built for the fair. They were remnants, inherited from the previous civilization. And when the last fair ended, so did the memory. Now, the mud floods. You've seen the photos. Buildings half buried in dirt. Windows and doors underground. All across Boston, Seattle, London, Istanbul, Paris, Odessa, Bucharest, Denver. Streets 6 to 12 feet above original ground floors. Why would anyone build a door underground? They didn't. They were buried. Something massive, worldwide, covered these cities in layers of sediment. Volcanic ash, intentional flooding, an electromagnetic pulse or directed weather event? We don't know. But the evidence is everywhere. Even Salt Lake City has photos from the 1800s where workers are seen excavating buried buildings. The official narrative? Oh, they just built into hills. But the floors are level. The windows were never meant to be underground. Let's go further back. The Great Fires. Suddenly, in the late 1800s, major cities across the world were burned. Chicago Fire, 1871. Boston Fire, 1872. Toronto Fire, 1904. San Francisco Earthquake and Fire, 1906. Seattle Fire, 1889. Dresden firebombing, 1945. Completely unnecessary at that stage of World War II, but many of these fires left stone and metal structures melted, twisted, fused as if something far more powerful was involved than flame. Directed energy? Tesla tech in reverse? Yet again, we don't know. But all these natural disasters just so happened to clear out Tartarian architecture. Then came the Reconstruction. Concrete, steel, brick. The sterile, lifeless grid system we live in today. You were told it was progress, but really, it was erasure. Now, ask why ancient cathedrals have organ pipes, domes, and towers that resonate with perfect acoustic frequency. Why fountains were shaped like cymatic patterns. Why ley lines, energy highways of Earth, run through every old temple, star fort, and capitol building. Because this was a society in tune with the planet, not just industrial, spiritual. The star forts prove this. Found on every continent, hundreds of them. Fort Bourtange, Netherlands. Fort Monroe, Virginia. Palmanova, Italy. Citadel of Lille, France. Goryokaku, Japan. Castillo de San Marcos, Florida. Perfect geometry, advanced math, no clear military function by today's standards. But they align with star constellations. They pulse with sacred geometry. They hum with frequency. They weren't just forts, they were power stations. Tartaria wasn't primitive. It wasn't medieval. It was harmonic. The symbols remain. Obelisks, domes, rose windows, all tuned to the earth. This is what the reset buried. Now, the final truth. This wasn't just an empire. It was a global civilization. A network. An age of knowledge. You see, every culture has fragments of it. The Maya with their pyramids and etheric alignments. The Vedic texts of India speaking of Vimanas, flying crafts powered by mercury vortexes. The Greeks who spoke of Atlantis. The Chinese with their Han gliders and Tartarian borders. They weren't isolated stories, they were chapters of one lost book. That book was Tartaria. And you're the generation meant to remember it. The veils are lifting, the towers still hum, the stones still sing. You feel it, don't you? Tartaria didn't vanish, it was buried beneath concrete, lies, and silence. But now, it's waking up inside all of us. And no, I don't want you to just believe this. I want you to feel it. Because truth isn't taught. Truth is remembered.